You know that feeling when you find something at the back of a drawer? An old notebook, a membership card, something you bought with genuine intention, and you can tell, just from looking at it, exactly who you were trying to become when you bought it. I found a language learning app on my phone recently. Spanish. Downloaded 3 years ago. I had done 11 minutes of it. 11 minutes. There was a little owl on it that looked genuinely disappointed in me, which is a lot to take from a cartoon bird, but there you go. The thing is, I did not delete it. I just sort of stared at it, moved it to a folder, told myself I would get back to it. And that, right there, that little moment in the kitchen, still in my dressing gown at 8:15, phone in one hand, coffee going cold in the other, that is basically the story of half the things I meant to do with my life. And the question I kept coming back to was this. At what point does it become too late? Not for Spanish, for anything. For the fitness I kept meaning to sort, for the habits I kept meaning to build, for becoming, gradually, a slightly better version of myself. At what point do you cross some invisible line where it is just not worth starting anymore? Because I think a lot of people believe that line exists. That if you did not start young, start right, start with a plan and a protein shake and a 5-year vision board, then you have basically missed it. And they use that belief, I use that belief, to justify staying exactly where they were, which is a very comfortable thing to believe, and also an almost completely wrong one. My name is John. I have got 2 boys, both still young enough to think I am doing. I started this channel because I kept thinking about what I would tell them. Not when they are 7 and 9, but when they are 30, 35, standing in their own kitchens, staring at their own neglected apps, wondering whether they have left it too long. I am not an expert in anything. I am just a bloke in his mid-40s who has made mostly decent choices and some genuinely baffling ones, and who can look back now with the kind of clarity that only arrives about 15 years after it would have been useful. So, the it's too late problem. Let me tell you what it actually looks like. I have got 2 mates. We will call them Dave and Pete because those are not their names, but they are good enough. Dave decided at 38 that he was going to sort his health out. Not dramatically, no marathon, no transformation. He just started walking 30 minutes most days, stopped eating takeaway 4 nights a week, went to bed at a reasonable hour. He felt stupid doing it at first, he told me, like he had missed the window, like it was something you were supposed to have cracked at 25. He is 44 now, genuinely the best he has looked and felt in years. Still not running marathons, does not own any Lycra, just steadily better. Pete did not do that. Pete kept saying he would sort it out when things calmed down at work. That was 6 years ago. Things have not calmed down at work. Pete is tired in a way that is not really about sleep anymore, and I am not saying that to be harsh about Pete. I say it because I recognise it, because there were years I was Pete, sitting in the car outside the house for 10 minutes before going in, just needing to decompress, eating whatever was within arm's reach at 10:30 at night, because that was the first moment I'd stopped moving. Not doing anything badly, just not doing anything particularly well either, and calling that normal. The difference between Dave and Pete is not talent or time or circumstance. It is just that Dave decided that starting late was better than not starting. That is all. That is the whole gap. And here is the thing about waiting for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is not coming. It is not being held up in traffic somewhere about to arrive. It is just not a thing. The moment you are in right now is the only one that will ever actually be available. Which sounds obvious when you say it out loud. And yet, I spent a genuinely remarkable number of years behaving as if Monday were a different, better country where I would finally have my life together. If you find any of this useful, or if you are nodding along in a way that is slightly uncomfortable, subscribe, leave a comment, tell me where you are at. Because the comments on this channel are honestly some of the most honest conversations I have come across. Real people, real situations. Worth being part of. Now, the practical bit. Because saying, just start, is the most useless advice in the world if we leave it there. The reason most people do not start, or keep stopping, is that they imagine change as this enormous single event, a reinvention, a before and after. They are not looking to add a walk to their morning, they are imagining they need to become an entirely different human being, and that is exhausting before you have even put your trainers on. The thing that actually works, and I know this now, having done it wrong for approximately 20 years, is stupidly small to begin with. Pick one area, not 5, 1. The one that, if it was slightly better, would make everything else feel slightly more manageable. For some people, that is sleep. For some, it is movement. For some, it is money, or how they spend their evenings, or the fact that they have not called someone they should have called in months. One thing. Start there, and then do it badly for a bit. That part is important, because the version of Dave who started walking at 38 did not start with great walks. He started with a 20-minute shuffle round the block that he nearly talked himself out of every single day for the first 3 weeks. And somewhere in that shuffling, somewhere between the 3rd and 4th week, it started to feel like something he just did. Not a heroic act, just a thing that happened. There is this idea that identity is fixed, that by your 40s you are basically who you are going to be, and the project is just maintenance from here. That is rubbish. Identity shifts through repeated action, not through deciding to be different, through doing something different, consistently, until it quietly becomes part of how you think of yourself. I used to think of myself as someone who did not exercise. Full stop. Just not a thing I did. Now I walk most mornings before work. Not because I had a revelation, because I did it enough times that it started to feel weird not to. The identity followed the action, not the other way around. And the regret thing. This is the one I feel most. Because regret does not come from having tried something late. Regret comes from the not trying. From watching years go by while you waited to feel ready. I genuinely do not regret any of the things I started late. I regret the gap before I started. That is a different thing, and it matters. I think about my boys a lot when I think about this stuff. Not because I want to project any of this onto them. They will make their own choices. They will have their own gaps and their own versions of Pete. But because being a father has a strange way of making you honest about yourself. You want to model something worth modeling. Not perfection, they would see straight through that. But direction. The sense that you are at least pointed somewhere useful and moving, even slowly. I do not want my sons to be 40 and staring at a cartoon owl that has given up on them. I want them to know, properly know, not just hear from me, that late is not the same as over. That the version of themselves at 50 can still be significantly better than the version at 30, if they choose to actually do something about it rather than wait for Monday. That the years they have got ahead of them are genuinely worth something, but only if they spend them moving forward rather than planning to. And if they are not listening to me now, which, honestly, they are not, they are currently arguing about a crisp, maybe they will find this when they are older, when it lands differently, when they are the ones sitting in the kitchen with a cold coffee and a slightly accusatory phone screen. Because this is the thing I have finally figured out. Standing at 44 with some things properly sorted and some things still embarrassingly mid-shuffle. It is almost never too late to make things better. Not perfectly better, not dramatically better overnight, but genuinely, meaningfully, noticeably better. The future version of you will still benefit. Even if you did not start young, even if you wasted years, even if the owl is disappointed. Start anyway. Pick the one thing. Do it badly. Do it again tomorrow. Let the identity catch up later. That Spanish app is still on my phone, still in the folder. But last Tuesday I did 23 minutes of it. 23! The owl looked genuinely surprised. Which is a start.